Thank you for having us. Um, we split out this presentation. I will first tell you about the tensions that led to why we wanted to build a new feedback app. And then Tom will tell you about what we came up with, which is called Flint, open source since yesterday on GitHub. If you're interested, very alpha, but I already found some programmers who are interested. Um, so, first of all, when we saw the presentation for today, I asked it to be renamed from peer review to feedback, because one of the tensions that we found was that it was very hard for people to give feedback while at the same time knowing that the feedback would be used for reviewing people at the end of the year. At Spindle, before we had Holacracy, we had no management. And one of the first things that we found out that was lacking without a management structure, although I'm not even sure that it also ever works with managers, is that there's no formalized way of collecting and giving feedback throughout the year. So some people are probably better at feedback than others, but you could go throughout the year without receiving any feedback. So we needed a system to set up to facilitate giving this feedback. And us being a software company, of course, the first thing we found was that we probably needed this new software tool to facilitate this. So we built a tool called Grid 360, which was based on the 360 feedback methodology. And we have been using that for the first year that we were also using Holacracy, but then some really intense tensions started to arise. So first of all, we built the tool Grid 360 for departments. I'm not really sure why, because we never had departments, but in this tool you were either in software development or in people operations or in partner managers, as we call it. And then when you start using Holacracy, of course, people start fulfilling roles in many circles. But in the feedback tool, you would still have only feedback on your development role and not on people operations if you choose to move in that direction. So that was our first conclusion, that in our new tool, we needed a way to make it work for Holacracy so that you would have feedback in every role that you fulfill in the organization. So we made a Glassfrog integration, and now we have a randomized system where you get 1 or 2 feedback requests per week to get feedback on all your roles. And in the previous system, one tension was that there was no separation between role and soul. It was a very long list of things you could get feedback on, like analytic skills, reasoning, listening. But this assumed that you would have a very complete picture of someone. While in Holacracy, you actually work with people in roles, and it could be, of course, that someone's very good at listening in one role. Maybe on people operations, they turn out to be really nice people, but as software developers, they're not really good at listening. So we wanted to have a system where you could get feedback only on roles. And because in the previous system we had all these very specific questions about skills, it felt like a very tedious task. People were blocking like half an afternoon in their calendar every month just to get feedback. And we solved that by making it just very easy to have only positive things about the role, and then some things where you could have room for improvement. On the tediousness, this is of course a problem. If people feel that giving feedback is a tedious task, they're not really enthusiastic about giving feedback. So we wanted to make it into a habit, and to do that we wanted to make it recurrent, and not just every quarter, but like every week. Just a very small. I'm hoping that now it takes about 10 minutes out of a week for someone just to give feedback, making it much more easy, making it fun, hopefully to give feedback, thus arriving at a habit. So Tom, please tell us what we came up with.
I hope you can see it all. So it's still very simple in form, but I hope it'll be very big in outcome. This is the screen you'll see when you have given feedback on a specific role. It's all Glassrock imported, so if you click on the lead link or on the circle information, you'll get the accountabilities and all that kind of stuff. We made it into saying something positive about a specific role and something someone could improve in that role. Everybody's free to just fill in whatever they feel like. So if it's just a sentence, it's okay. If you want to type down an entire story, that's okay as well. We also wanted to do individual feedback, and because we noticed a lot of people found it very hard to just type something about someone, we thought we'd do it with a metaphor. We don't know if it actually works as we intended, but we'll find out hopefully in a few coming months. So in the screen you'll see if this person was a superhero, what kind of superpowers would he or she have. So we hope to stimulate some kind of creativeness at people and say something about how someone is doing in the company with this metaphor. What we also found was that it's actually very useful if someone that you have given feedback to can react to the feedback, if you found it useful, if you found it valuable. So we made it that you could rate the feedback you have given or you got from someone. So you can rate it on how recognizable you found it and how valuable you found it. And you can also state a follow-up action regarding that feedback. So the evolution. I see my smileys aren't working. That's a shame. So we got a lot of reactions from people working with Flint. These are a couple of those. I can't give feedback because I don't do any work in this circle. So people find it hard to actually give feedback to a role in a circle they are in. So we have a follow-up question for them. Is there a reason you still fulfill a role in the circle? So we want to kind of create awareness for people about the roles they fulfill. If they can't say anything about someone in a circle, do they still... is it still a good thing that they have a role in the circle, or is there something they should do about that? Isn't giving feedback to the plant caretaker role nonsense? So we have a lot of trivial roles. Somewhat trivial, so taking care of the plants in the office. So some people find it not useful to actually say something about those roles. But if you look at it from the other way, the one actually taking care of the plants might find it very useful to actually hear from his colleagues that he's doing a good job. So you could also look at it from the other way. I don't have a clue about what this role does. That's also something someone said. So people don't actually know what to say about someone if they don't know what a role does, even though they can still check the accountabilities from Glassrock and all that. So we are actually hoping that people could type something in the feedback form saying what would you expect of this role, and actually look a bit deeper into that role and the accountabilities to actually find out what other people are doing. So that's basically it. We're still running this at Spindle. We've been running it for 2 months or so, and these are the kinds of questions we're running into. So we actually created a feedback booster role, which kind of researches the psychology about feedback and behind the feedback, and so that we actually can stimulate people into giving feedback and knowing how to give feedback. So we're still working on that. Thanks.
We've got plenty of time to take some questions. And Adam, if you could get yourself hooked up in the meantime. Nick, let's start with you.
So I just want to preface this by saying giving and receiving feedback is a skill. You're probably aware that there's skill involved in doing that. So are you complementing this online tool with any skill building around how to do that both online and personally?
So was the question in how we stimulate people to actually learning how to give feedback?
Yeah, are you alongside this online tool, are you complementing it? Are you also giving people some training or skills in how to give and receive feedback?
Yeah, we currently have 2 people fulfilling the feedback booster role, which researches how to give feedback and actually giving. We're planning on to give a training on how to give feedback because a lot of people haven't learned that, and that's not bad. But if we give a training or a talk about that, we hopefully stimulate them into understanding how to do that.
How to trigger the feedback? You say once or twice a week. That is triggered by the person who fulfilled the role, he completed the project, or what's rhythm?
We just have it like we're now just running it once a week, and then it works with feedback requests. So you get 2 feedback requests for some persons filling some roles, and that's completely random. And we have just 2 a week now, just to make it recurrent, to have it come back. So there's no system yet behind it. That's something for on the future roadmap, because of course I think at some point we would like to have the possibility to actually ask for explicit feedback on one role you might be uncertain about. But for now, it's just random.
Yeah. Do you make a distinction between role-based feedback and personal feedback? Do you incentivize making a clear cut and difference? Because I see a lot of danger and risk in not doing that.
Yeah, that's one of the problems we set out to solve. So for that reason, we have the role feedback now, where we really separate the role from the soul. So in my role as software developer, I expect feedback only on my software development skills and what I could do better. And then we had the metaphor questions that we showed, where, for example, I work with you in a circle, and the circle would be, if you were a superpower, what would your superpowers be? That's an insight from psychology, which supposedly makes it easier for people to give feedback on the person instead of on the work they are doing.
Wouldn't be the tactical meetings the place for role feedback?
Excuse me, what did you?
I mean, the role, if you make that separation clear, wouldn't the role feedback place we actually already be tactical meetings? If I have a tension about anything in the way you work, and it's purely work, isn't tactical meeting the space? Or what's the difference, let's say, in UC?
I think the difference, in a tactical, I would never have attention, because I just want to shout out how great you're doing this or that in this role. If everybody would be doing that, and your whole tactical, the atmosphere would be really good, but it would also take up a lot of time. So we just want to make sure that everybody gets a compliment at least twice a week with this tool. One of them is, what are you already doing great? And the other one, what could be better? So where could you improve?
Andrea?
Is the feedback anonymized? So do I know who is giving me feedback?
No, you'll always know who is giving you feedback, and then the person giving the feedback also gets a response on how well your feedback was appreciated. So you could go, then you could go to them in person and talk some more about your feedback.
Thanks.
So do you have feedback for the circle? Because circle is a role itself, right? And also, how are you going to use? What's the application of this feedback results? How are you going to apply this result for this feedback?
We're hoping that you can use this feedback in your work. Like if you say where you could improve, I hope that you can do something with that feedback.
All right. So how about the feedback to the circle itself?
Excuse me, circle?
To the circle, yeah. So
The circle's a role.
Circles, yeah.
Ah, okay. No, we have no general circle feedback yet.
And we have time for one more. Spindle, go ahead.
I have a question. Is it also possible to ask questions? So if my role is the lead link of, I don't know, that I ask questions to the team, what are the biggest struggles at the moment, for example, or what they are looking forward to next week, or things like that?
It's not possible yet, but it's on the roadmap. To give you an impression, there's now like 2 or 3 weeks of development time in this tool, and we have a long list of things we would like in the future. And what you're suggesting is certainly one of them.
Yeah, because we have good experience with that. It's a tool from the US called 15.5, and we have these questions, and we repeat them every week, and then you can really see how the feeling and how the stress and everything is evolving. So I would, I could recommend it, because we're doing it since, I don't know, some months now.
Yeah, I would really like to have just a general sense of happiness per circle or for the whole organization, so you can look back at the end of the year. That's